Hello everyone and welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Destiny Sanchez alongside Logan Bourandas and Ben Russell. The first week of baseball is only a small taste of the 162 games that is the MLB season. But tonight we are giving you our hot takes. The Padres have a young dynasty that could possibly take over the Dodgers at some point in time. Some may say they potentially could be the best team in baseball. But do they have what it takes to defeat the defending champs?
Well, Logan, I wonder if the Padres have been in touch with NASA lately, because I think they are on their way to the moon. This is the best team in baseball, in my opinion. They have a stacked lineup with Fernando Tatis Jr., who is hurt right now. They also got Manny Machado, Eric Hosmer, Will Myers, Jake Cronenworth, who, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated players in baseball. And if you look at their rotation and what they did to improve their rotation this offseason, they went all the way in. They acquired Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove, who we saw threw a no-hitter on Friday, the first in Padres history, might I add, and Blake Snell. All three of those guys can be Cy Young candidates. Snell, obviously, a Cy Young winner a few years ago. We've seen what Yu Darvish can do. This team got a taste of the postseason last year. Obviously got swept by the eventual champion Los Angeles Dodgers. But I think that they are building momentum, and I think that this team is going to be a force to be reckoned with going forward.
Yeah, Ben, have you ever heard of those LA Dodgers? And I think that they're the main reason why that the Padres aren't there quite yet. And the Dodgers, they won the World Series last year. They've won the NL West, which is the same division this team's in year after year. And by the way, they got better. They signed the reigning Cy Young, Trevor Bauer, and they're looking like one of the best teams again in the MLB. So I think the Padres, they still have a little bit more to do. I don't think a team can miss the playoffs for 13 years, come back into it in a shortened season, and then be suddenly called the best team in baseball. And none of those guys that you mentioned for the Padres lineup, none of those guys are outfielders. This Dodgers lineup, it is loaded at every single asset. So I think that the Dodgers, they are the best team in baseball still.
With the way the game is played today, starting pitchers just don't go the full 9 innings. With Degrom as the ace of a strong starting rotation, it can be deflating when the bullpen doesn't hold up its end of the bargain. So Logan, what is your take on the Mets bullpen?
Yeah, so the Mets, they're currently wasting this guy's career, Jacob Degrom, one of the best starting pitchers in the game today. They're just wasting his career right now. They've been doing it for quite some time, but with the way that this bullpen has kind of constructed itself year after year, they've gone after big names. Jairus Familia, Edwin Diaz, Dellin Betances, and Trevor May. None of those guys have worked out for the Mets, and it's been the reason why this team has never been able to reach the playoffs for quite some time. And it's been the Mets rotation kind of carrying this offense for this year. Jacob Degrom, I mentioned before, Marcus Stroman, and then they'll have guys like Carlos Carrasco, Noah Syndergaard get back into the fold. So I think that if the Mets bullpen can't pick up the pace, then there are definitely two other teams in the NL East that can pass them. We'll talk about one in a second, but the Braves, they're still hanging around as well. So I think the Mets, their bullpen could definitely cause problems down the road.
Well, it is a new year. You know, the season just started. However, it's the same old Mets. Some things just don't change. Look, like you said, Jacob Degrom is the best pitcher in baseball. I'm just going to come out and say it. His career is being wasted in New York. Now, obviously, wins are a stat that we don't really, use for pitchers, that we don't really take into account that much. But Jacob Degrom has had so many games over the years where he's pitched absolute gems and his offense hasn't helped him out, and he's ended up taking a no decision or a loss even when he pitches great. Now, like you said, they've gone after players in the last few off seasons, and I go back to 2018 as one of the turning points for them. They signed Jairus Familia and Jed Lowry that off season. Jed Lowry is no longer with the Mets. Jairus Familia, he's not what he once was. You look at the Yankees, that same offseason, they signed Adam Ottavino, who's now with the Red Sox. They also signed Zach Britton and DJ LeMahieu, both of whom are huge contributors to that team and could have been big contributors to the Mets. So for me, it's really a matter of what they do in free agency. Now, obviously, they have the new owner in Steve Cohen, who is going to be willing to spend money. They just re-signed Francisco Lindor to a 10-year deal. It's going to be interesting to see what the Mets do going forward, but I just don't see things getting better for them anytime soon.
With a successful manager like Joe Girardi and a nice mix of veteran and young players like Didi and Harper, the Phillies seem to be making their presence known in the early part of the season. Ben, can the Phillies come out of the season as the best team in the NL East, or will they fall under pressure?
Well, this is a hot take segment, so I got a hot take. I'm going to say yes. Party like it's 2011 in Philadelphia. I think this Phillies team is electric. You saw what they did this past weekend against the Braves. Now, last night was a questionable call to say the least, but this team looks really good so far, and the backbone of it is their bullpen, which last year was actually one of the worst in MLB history. this year they signed guys like Archie Bradley and Jose Alvarado, who have helped shore that bullpen. Hector Neris has been very good in the early season. And a guy that you obviously have to look out for is Bryce Harper. He's looking like he's back to that 2015 MVP form, and if that's the case, this is going to be a scary team going forward.
Yeah, Ben, I guess I'll be the voice of reason in this hot take segment, but I think that there's still one team, potentially two if the Mets can figure their things out, that could potentially beat the Phillies down the road. Now, they figured out what a bullpen is. Congratulations. But the Atlanta Braves, they are still the best team in this division. They have won it year after year, and they won 4 games in a row. It should have been 5. We all know it, but the Atlanta Braves, they're picking it up after a slow start to the season, and some of those wins were against the Phillies as well. And this offense, Freddie Freeman, Ronald Acuna Jr., Marcell Ozuna, still one of the best in the league. And this pitching staff, they have young guys like Ian Anderson, Charlie Morton, they just signed in free agency, and they'll get Mike Soroka back, their ace, very soon. So this Braves team is definitely still making a case to be their best team in the division.
With the Oakland A's having a 3-7 record and a rough start to their season, how likely are they to be a postseason contender?
Well, Destiny, I think Moneyball is officially over in the city of Oakland, and they're starting out the season 3-7, like you said. But their stats, they have looked like the worst team in the entire MLB. Their run differential is the worst in baseball. Their offense is one of the worst in baseball. I think they're 29th in baseball, and their offensive leader in batting average is Jed Lowry, a guy you mentioned to be a bust with the New York Mets. If he's leading your team in average after not playing for quite some time in New York, there is a problem in Oakland. And their pitching staff, which was thought to be pretty decent with some guys like Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas leading that staff, it is the worst pitching staff in all of baseball. They're the worst team in terms of ERA. So I think that the A's, they are officially out of this race already here, especially with teams like the Astros and Angels in their division, and then teams like the Blue Jays, Rays, White Sox, and Twins all fighting for that wild card spot in the AL.
Well, I'm no math guy, but carry the one. They played 10 out of 162 games so far. That's less than 2% of the season. I think it's time to pump the brakes on the Moneyball is dead talk. Look, this team has been a postseason contender for the last 3 seasons. They haven't been able to get over that hump yet. I still think this can be one of the best teams in the American League. Now, you got a guy like Matt Chapman. You have Matt Olson. That, to me, is the best corner infield duo in baseball. So if you can build around those two guys, like you said, Jed Lowry, a guy who we've talked about, he shouldn't be leading your team in average, but he's still a solid player, even at his older age. I think this team needs to make a midseason trade, maybe for, a big outfield player, maybe for a pitcher, add to their rotation, add to their bullpen. They do need to improve in a lot of spots, but I've seen enough talent out of this team the last 3 years to give them the benefit of the doubt and think that a slow start is something that they can overcome and get to the postseason.
It's just the beginning, but it'll be interesting to see if these hot takes will prove true as the season progresses. That's all we have for this edition of Penn State Sports Night. Stay tuned for more MLB content. For Logan Bourandas and Ben Russell, I'm Destiny Sanchez, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for watching this edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also, follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.